Yes, this one was a rare miss from my man, Ali Velshi. You know I like Ali Velshi on MSNBC. I like that other fella. I never remember his name, though. He looks like a child. Chris Hayes. And yeah, a lot of the hosts on there. But boy, when they're wrong, are they wrong? And here's Ali Velshi hemming and hawing, trying to answer the question: should we hold Trump to account for all of his crimes? Or should we be a little bit corrupt? This is the question he's asking, in essence. Should we take into consideration that we're a little bit scared of his bunch of terrorist supporters? Let me answer that question right out the gate. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I hope, genuinely hope, his terrorist scumbag head supporters try to rise up, because frankly, I'm looking for an excuse to stomp them down. And I would like these punks who are walking around our streets right now, happy to make people's lives miserable, I'd like them in a prison cell. That's me personally. That's me being immature, but honest. Unfortunately, I don't think they have the courage. But regardless, we should not take into account the fact that this guy has scum for supporters. Let's get to Ali Velshi before I go crazy.
When former President Gerald Ford decided to pardon Richard Nixon in 1974, he believed he was doing what was in the best interests of the country. He believed that a long, protracted trial that could drag on for months would do more harm than good. In his pardon, he wrote, "The tranquility to which this nation has been restored could be irreparably lost by the prospects of bringing to trial a former president of the United States." And
let's hang out here for a second. You could almost copy and paste that to Reconstruction. Discussion of that. Oh, well, we want to go back. We want to go back to peace. We just finished this war. We're enjoying this, and now people are grumbling. We don't like grumbling. Yeah, they enslaved a bunch of people. Yeah, they betrayed the country and killed a bunch of folks. Yeah, I know. But we don't like to make a scene. You could copy and paste that to Barack Obama. Talking about George W. Bush. There was discussion, very briefly. I don't know if you were watching, but during the transition, 2008, there was questions. Are you going to look into the cause of the Iraq War? Barack Obama said, it's time to move on. It's time to start healing as a nation. So what I'm going to do is just keep that war going throughout my entire presidency and not hold him to account. That's my Obama. You could copy and paste that to all the dumbass mistakes we've made throughout history where we fail to hold people to account. So let's watch Ali Velshi wonder. Just ask the question, was he right or was he wrong? He was wrong is the answer. But go ahead, ask the question.
Quote, "There are clear parallels between Nixon and Donald Trump, the first president ever to be impeached twice and the first president who has faced a criminal indictment, let alone two and possibly a third. But let's be clear, the current times in which we live are vastly different from the Watergate era. Donald Trump must be held to account for his actions, but it is..."
No. I would have liked him to have mentioned they were caused by our failure in the Watergate era. But okay, keep going, Ali. I'm angry with you. Damn it.
Watergate era. Donald Trump must
And you won't distract me with that fantastic suit either. God dang it.
Be held to account for his actions. But it is essential to consider the delicate balance between the necessity to prosecute Trump and exacerbating the ever-growing polarization in America. The GOP's embrace of America's paranoid fringes is no longer an
Yeah, we wouldn't want to anger these upstanding citizens. We don't want to exacerbate the polarization. We want to make compromise with these goddamn terrorists, you see? How will we ever please these filthy terrorists if we prosecute Trump to the fullest extent of the law? I'm so sorry, Ali Velshi. I'm so sorry. How could I have doubted you? Look at these sweet boys. Look at these sweet, sweet fellows. How could I have dreamed of hurting their fifis? Those miserable f***s belong in a prison cell just for standing out there playing toy soldier in front of, what is that, a Harry's Army surplus? Christ. I want them offended. I want them spending the rest of their lives just seething. Just seething. And I want their lives to be short because I want their hearts to pop from the heart attack they have when we elect, I don't know, a gay, middle-aged trans woman as president. That's what I wish for them. And that is what any decent, law-abiding citizen deserves to see. Their hearts actually pop out of their chest from the fury that they have.
Afterthought. It is a stark reality. Trump's presidency has embraced and encouraged the resurgence of the white nationalist movement, whose members now police our nation's libraries, our school board meetings, and various venues across America, menacing and harassing those who are not aligned with their beliefs. Trump's cult-like following within the GOP has made it politically costly for any Republican to deviate from his extremist rhetoric, fearing alienation from a party that demonstrates fealty to him time and time again. Trump has also cynically projected his legal woes onto his supporters, painting any indictment of him as an attack on all of them and pledging to get revenge on their behalf.
Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a badge, a great, great, beautiful badge of honor and courage. Because I'm being indicted for you. In 2016...
Oh, Trump, I am going to honor the Christ out of you in that case. I'm going to ensure you get the highest honors. May you get a chair that honors you right up till the end, you little mother.
I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution.
Polling over the last several months indicates that with each new indictment, Trump's popularity grows among his extremist Republican base, considering...
Which should tell you, Ali Velshi, I know you watch this show, which should tell you that their opinion is not worth considering. How about that? This guy gets indicted, every I dotted, T crossed, and they like him more than you should consider what they have to say less. They are not worth a damn. Okay? Can you get that through your head, skull, whatever? I got distracted. He's got beautiful glasses. He's a sharp dresser. I can't knock him for that. But my God. Why are we having this conversation on MSNBC? Why is that lower third, the balance between prosecuting Trump and polarizing America? What the hell are you talking about? Let's find out.
all these factors, prosecuting this particular former president becomes an entirely different ballgame. However, it is a ballgame that it is entirely necessary to play. Excusing the behavior of a defiant and habitual lawbreaker with fascist ambitions would raise serious questions about the integrity of our democratic system, and it could undermine the very bedrock of our democratic principles.
End of
I
discussion.
want to dig deeper into this topic. I'm joined by two of the smartest people on this that I know. Anne Applebaum is a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian and staff writer at The Atlantic. She's also the author of several books, including Twilight of Democracy, The Seductive Lure of Authoritarianism. Timothy Snyder is a professor of history at Yale University, a permanent fellow at the Institute for Human Sciences, and author of On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. I've relied so much on the two of you over the years to understand things that are going on, so it's a real privilege to have you both here to address this issue. And there's a specific question that I want to address with you, and I've already received tweets about this morning from people who think this is an unnecessary conversation, that there shouldn't be any conversation about the potential risks of prosecuting and finding Donald Trump guilty of the things that he has been charged with and may be charged with. It may be entirely necessary and important to do so, but it could further polarize the country. I'd love to get your take on that.
So, yes, I think it's important to talk about the risks because there are risks.
I didn't realize that I was tweeting Ali Velshi. Okay.
But it's also important to look at historical precedents. So you mentioned one in your introduction, and this was Nixon. The reason why that situation was so different from this one is that Nixon was condemned by his own party. So Republicans in Congress, Republicans in the country, not all of them, but many of them wanted him to resign. They participated in the Watergate hearings process. And by the time Gerald Ford became president, there was a consensus, at least within the party leadership, that that he was well out of the White House.
She's skating by why that is. Why? Well, we have contemporary answers. They told us why in their own words. Because they thought there was no way he would win in a court of law. They thought they'd all be taken down with him. Yeah, keep that goddamn tongue out for a second. You get to look dumb if you say a dumb thing. This isn't something where we hem and haw about how the bad guys might take it if the good guys win. This is not a soccer game where we're ahead by so many points that the sportsmanlike thing to do is quit scoring. No. We are in the position we are in now because we failed to act immediately following January 6th. He should have been arrested days after January 6th. He should have been arrested before January 20th. And then, when we allowed him to leave the White House unbruised, without his dumb, spray-tanned head getting slammed into a cop car roof, when we allowed that to happen, we didn't arrest him when he was a private citizen. Should have been arrested immediately. He should have awaited the results of the investigation from prison because he was to quote a Harrison Ford movie, clear and present danger. An obvious danger. I don't know what the legal wording is for it. I don't know exactly which laws this would have fallen under. But often we forget that the laws are there to just formally say what we know to be true. He's an obvious threat. He did what he did pretty much publicly. I'm sure he did worse in private. But we saw him orchestrate the coup. We saw him send the mob down to the Capitol. He should have been awaiting trial from a cell. But we failed to do that. And so this corrupt Republican Party did not believe that consequences were coming. And so now she's going to talk about how it's different. Well, it's different now because the Republican politicians, our servants, our betters, they won't be pleased about it. They haven't given us permission. It's our failure to enforce the law that caused that. And if we continue to do this, if the leftmost television news channel starts talking about how we should consider giving him a pass on some of these things because our betters have said they're displeased, we're going to get Hitler too.
We don't have that now. We have a Republican Party that is encouraging Trump, that is spreading the same kinds of messages, that is...
And we really don't want to offend our betters.
Questioning whether January 6th even was an insurrection at all, even though, as we know more and more, we have more and more evidence that it was. And so in that circumstance, it's very important that the law proceeds further because there isn't anything else that can stop that further radicalization of the Republican Party. So although I agree with some of the questioners that it's important to, it's important to ask I agree with your point that it's important to look at the risks. It's also important to understand why this is different. And let me mention one more precedent, which is that of Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, who was released from prison. This is, way back in the early days before he'd been elected. He was released from prison after an attempted insurrection, and this actually encouraged his followers more. So we also have to think about what are the risks of not condemning him, of not.
Anne Applebaum, I haven't figured out a way to visualize eating my words, but I'm gonna snarf them down right now. Good point. I shouldn't have paused you when I did. Don't make me regret doing it now. You're right. Except it is not important to ask the question Ali Velshi is asking. It's a dumb question. It's a question from a weak little man. Most nights, Ali Velshi's a lion. That night, when he did this segment, he was a sniveling coward. He was a moron to ask that question. It's a horrible, it's an asinine question to ask. So no, we don't have to ask that question. We don't have to consider the pros and cons of enforcing the law. But other than that, no notes. Sorry I yelled at you earlier.
Not carrying the January 6th investigations to their obvious end, because if we don't do it, then we give actual more impetus to that movement.
Tim, across the world, including in Eastern and Central Europe, but in America in the Civil Rights Movement, in South Africa during the anti-apartheid movement, in India during the independence movement, there were people who knowingly broke laws for an honorable end, to change oppressive laws. Donald Trump has managed to squirm his way into that crowd, at least with his own supporters. It sounds outrageous, but it's actually happening. He is convincing people, as Mussolini did. I think Mussolini called himself an avenger. Donald Trump calls himself their retribution. How is it that you separate these things? How is it that you explain to people that, no, these were actual laws he broke? Whether he believed he won the election or he didn't, he undertook things to break the law in America that undermined democracy, not for the gain, not for the benefit of some better result.
I mean, the fundamental difference is sometimes people will break laws in the name of a principle, and that principle can itself be the rule of law. That's actually the foundation of the history of the United States of America. The common law tradition that we inherited from Britain assumed that the king was not above the law. The basis of the American Revolution, therefore, was holding the king to the law. And once we had done that, we then wrote up that common law in the form of a written constitution, which made it very clear that there would be no king, and that nobody would be above the law. The president is someone who holds office for a certain period of time. It's not a special person who is somehow above the law. When Mr. Trump talks about being retribution or he threatens revenge, what he's doing is that he is using fascist language. He's using language from an entirely different political system, one which says that that law doesn't matter, that there's no difference between the leader and the party and the state and the people, that everything ultimately comes down to the whim and the will of one person. If we want to get ourselves into a fascist system, then the thing to do, as Ann suggests, is not to prosecute Mr. Trump.
Boom.
Because the meaningful polarization in this country, I believe, is between people who believe in law and people who don't. And the people who don't believe in law are going to be galvanized and encouraged by a powerful figure, someone who has been president and wishes to be president. And of course, that's the difference.
Yes.
The person who is the leader and has the power is now calling upon people to break the law.
And this concept of vengeance, this idea that I was in power, I'm still pretty powerful, and I could be ultimately powerful again, has come to play in an ad that Donald Trump put out a few days ago on, I think on Thursday, on Truth Social. And let's just play this, and I want to get your take on it.
If you around with us, if you do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done.
You know what? I don't give a damn. Both of Velshi's guests gave correct answers. And, all right, maybe Ali Velshi did that whole segment just to explain to the nervous Nellies why it's important that we enforce the law. I just do not like the framing, and I have no patience for cowardice. None. You want to know what it could look like to have a swift reaction from a court of law, I give you this CNN article. Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro barred from running for office for 8 years. If you were watching on January 20th of this year, I said, look for how long it takes Brazil to handle their coup. Look at them. See how they handle it. 5 out of 7 judges found the former president guilty, effectively ending any hope of a political comeback in the forthcoming 2026 election. 2 of the judges voted against the decision, which prevents Bolsonaro from running for public office for 8 years. Jair Bolsonaro, with some of the same actors, including Steve Miller and Steve Bannon, attempted a January 6th style coup in Brazil because Lula da Silva whipped him in the polls. Already, they collected evidence, they held a trial, they have a verdict. Jair Bolsonaro will not be able to run for office in the next election. I would argue that you could have a stricter punishment, certainly, but they handled their business. We should learn from that. And I don't appreciate wishy-washy segments on cable news talking about how maybe we don't want to. I leave it to you to decide. The link to the Velshi clip is in the description. If you want to watch the whole thing, by all means, go for it. If you end up feeling that even asking the question was offensive, as I personally do, but I'll tell you, I'm not as committed to that idea, and I'd love to hear your opinions. Walk me off the cliff here, or walk me back from the edge. If you end up feeling that you would like to express to MSNBC that it was a stupid-ass question to ask in the first place, their contact information is in the description. And I would say let's take a page from MAGA's book. What does Fox have happened to them. When they say things that are not the lies MAGA wants to hear. They get inundated with phone calls and emails. Well, we're looking for the truth, and we are looking for backbone. Take a page out of their book. If you feel the way I do about this, write them. Say, that was a dumb question to ask. The answer is obvious. Just a thought. Let's see what the wicked community has to say.